Oklahoma sweeps through UCF as Kierston Deal impresses again. And of course, well, it's Bedlam week.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Sooners, we are joined as always by Alex Storako as we gear up for a big week in the land of Sooner softball. Before we talk Bedlam, let's dive into the weekend that was another productive week for Oklahoma, a sweep down on the road in Orlando. What were a couple of your big picture takeaways from Oklahoma and its 3 victories over UCF?
Yeah, I think there's a couple really good spots within this roster that really just shined. I mean, first, I want to talk about Kierston Deal because, she was just awarded another Big 12 Pitcher of the Week. She was amazing. She's been great. And I love that she's keeping up this consistency of just being quality and providing a lot of just lockdown innings for the Sooners, as well as just kind of like that inner fire. There was a lot of fight within the offense. Obviously, they exploded, but I feel like at times they probably could have got comfortable, and they never did, especially on that final game of the series. It finally came down to 11-7, kind of tighter game if you kind of think about it like that. So I was excited to see that fight out of the lineup, an ability to just keep on pressing when it comes to an offensive gain. And I just feel like that attitude was kind of there out of not only Kierston Deal, but just like the roster as a whole, that team that dug out, it seemed just infectious, and which was exciting just because going down to that Orlando Heat can kind of be a little bit of a trap. So I was excited to see just a lot of energy and enthusiasm as a whole from the team this year.
Alex Storako, of course, is our guest at Alex Storako on the social media machine. 10-2 in game 1, 2-1 Oklahoma over UCF in game 2. And then, as you mentioned, runs were scored. The runs were had in game 3, 11-7. Oklahoma won it. So the offensive eruption to start and to finish over the course of the weekend, the pitchers duel in the middle. What did you think about Oklahoma offensively in the series versus UCF? What did you like?
I love just kind of that explosion. They really put hits together, although I know that middle game, I think Sarah Willis threw just an unreal outing against the Sooner offense. So you see only the 2 hits recorded and only 2 runs, but it was enough to pull out the win because Kierston Deal did so well on that day with a full 7. But just in totality of the weekend from the offense, there was just a lot of combining. There was a lot of infectious past the bat mentality, and that's what we've kind of been wanting out of this offense. And I was really excited to kind of see that process throughout the weekend against a gritty UCF team. I feel like it was one of those weekends that could really kind of make or break their momentum going into Bedlam, and I was just really excited to see that they kind of took that momentum and really ran with it.
Alyssa Brito in that opening game, a home run, 11 hits for Oklahoma in the series opener. And then offensively, the 5 home runs. It was a power surge in the getaway win for Oklahoma, and they needed it because it was not the perfect start that Nicole May would have drawn up, and the pitching even after that, gave up a little bit to UCF. But the offense picked Oklahoma up. Ella Parker, a couple of home runs, a 2 home run day versus UCF in the final contest. What have you seen from Ella outside of just can hit it a mile? What stands out about her in this initial campaign?
I just see that poise that really stems out from her as a freshman. It's kind of hard at times to kind of not feel the jitters, not get, too amped up, don't press. And so I don't see that out of her in any of her big moments, whether that was against UCF this weekend, in prior games, her home run against, Texas. She's really just kind of stepped up in her own way. And even as a DP, it can be hard. That's what she's majority been in this lineup this year. And so it's been excited to see just like how she's developed in that role, because you can feel so just like, I can only do this one thing. I'm going to press just to make sure I get results. And you don't see that kind of stress out of her at all. She looks like she's just having a blast playing the game that she's loved and known for so long. And when you kind of get that player just playing the game like that, that's when you get that success that she's having.
Well, she and Cassidy Pickering have been tremendous as true freshmen for Oklahoma. And that duo named to the NFCA Freshman of the Year Top 25 watch list. Ella Parker, I mean, obviously continues to crush it, as illustrated by she had the game-winning RBI versus UCF on the Game 2 win, and obviously the 2 home run day. But it has to help, right, that you've got another true freshman kind of walking that path with you in Cassidy Pickering. How much do you think that helps Ella Parker and Cassidy, that they sort of have each other here in this initial campaign?
Absolutely. You don't feel that pressure of just like, oh gosh, I am a freshman to kind of doing it all. You can lean on each other in the fact of like, hey, if you don't have it this day, I'm going to help you out. And it's kind of that added addition within the lineup of like, there's not going to be a quote unquote weak link when it comes to, a younger freshman, just not as experienced as some of the veterans in this lineup. And I think that's what's adding to that power aspect of the lineup, as well as just the consistency, because truthfully, when you see it, if there's a down weekend from someone, Ella Parker or Cassidy, they're going to pick it up in some way, shape, or form. And so I think that is so, so important when it comes to it. I love that they're both succeeding the way that they are, and they're so supportive of each other too, and just like in their excitement and everything. It feels so just raw when you're watching it on the field and on the TV. And so it's really cool and just really special to kind of have that within your first year playing, at the stage you've grown up dreaming of.
What about Cassidy? We've chatted a lot about Ella, and one of the texters today I thought was right on the money. Ella actually joined us on the radio side, and they said she just hits to all parts of the park. It's, Ella's not just, left-handed hitter that takes it out to right field. I mean, she'll spray it all over the yard. What about Cassidy? What have you seen from Cassidy in her first trip around the sun in the Crimson and Cream?
I think she's so mature, even in like just the interviews I've seen her done too. She has that kind of Coach Gasso-esque like answers to every question, and that's kind of rare to find that in a freshman, but she shows that maturity off the field as well as on. She shines on defense, she makes the plays, and she has that kind of game savvy that not a lot of freshmen have right away. And I think that's so important going into obviously postseason now. I can't imagine how much more she's learned now that she has, a really good chunk of the season under her belt. But just another rarely like kind of player that has that poise, that maturity, but also has that excitement when it comes to just succeeding in this such a hard game like that. So when you have 2 freshmen that are able to do it, I think it just goes to show not only the recruiting, but also just the learning process as well. Just all year building up to this season, there's so much that goes into it. And, Coach Gasso really knows how to pick them.
KD is on fire here of late. Again, the Big 12 pitcher of the week for a second consecutive week. Let's dissect a little bit more what you saw from Kierston Deal. And then, of course, Bedlam is here. We got to discuss that with Alex Storako right here on Locked On Sooners. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there is just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get, such as unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heights their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique minigames like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and download it now, free on Google Play or in the App Store. Purchase your tickets for the Western Conference semifinals, the Oklahoma City Thunder versus, well, TBD, either the Dallas Mavericks or the Los Angeles Clippers. But the Gametime app, that's the place you're going to want to go purchase tickets. Download the Gametime app today. Use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Why is that? Well, the Gametime app is awesome for sports fans. It lets you see your seat view before you buy with the panoramic view from your seat, again, in the app before you purchase. Plus, with Gametime ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. On Sooners. Okay, so Kierston Deal is really coming into her own. As you know, if she wasn't already, she was, big for this team a season ago, for you and this team a season ago in spots. But now, obviously, she's been called upon a lot more. She's making her way maybe into the number 2 role on the staff for Oklahoma. That's a point of debate, I'm sure, for Sooner fans. But what have you seen from Kierston Deal, who was just terrific again?
I mean, just absolute confidence, just the way that she's spinning the ball. I feel like every week so far, I feel like we've had to just talk about KD and the way that she's performing because she's been so consistent. She's providing the team a lot of security when it comes to just the defensive side when they've struggled at times offensively. And I think that's so important. And I think she is making her way into a headline kind of spot within the pitching staff. And for me, that's so exciting. She's like a little sister to me, so I'm super proud of just her kind of growing up within those moments of being on the pitching staff, especially for a team like Oklahoma. It's been so cool to see her develop in a lot of ways, whether that's just maturity on the field, off the field, and just like that pitching savvy when it comes down to it. She really kind of bounces back really, really well. And I think that's super important going into the postseason and continuously playing a, better team as you keep going forward. Obviously, UCF was a very seasoned team, and they don't strike out often, but she was able to just kind of work her magic in a lot of ways. And so I'm excited to see how she takes this success that she's had and really kind of build off of it going into postseason and those kind of another run of like kind of trophy chasing in a lot of ways. And so I'm excited to see how she builds off of that this season. Last year she had about 30-ish innings. She's already at 63 innings for the year, already doubling it. So I'm excited to see how Coach Gasso really uses her within the rotation, because I know she likes to kind of shrink down that pitching rotation a little bit as she gets into postseason and see who she kind of comes out with that 1-2 punch, 1-2-3 punch-ish. And I think Katie has really made a name for herself when it comes to that kind of debate.
Do you see in the way, I guess the right way to ask it would be, do you hear and do you see the maturity from Kierston Deal, the way she speaks, and then obviously the way she carries herself inside the circle? Are you seeing her become a mature player in front of our eyes?
Absolutely. I think that also stems from just getting that added experience under her belt. And so when she's already doubling her innings, she's coming up in big moments and just kind of shutting down hitters and offenses like, you're supposed to when you come in. And so I think it already kind of it starts to season you once you get that experience, and then it kind of explodes once you really kind of grasp onto it. And I really feel her just kind of grasping on to that maturity and being able to really, take offenses down one by one. And I think that's so special. I know people were like, oh, I don't know, just because Kelly's a lefty and Katie's a lefty, like coach likes to mix it up. I was excited to see that she got that Saturday start, especially against, UCF's number 1 ace, Sarah Willis. It was a great game for her to kind of like, okay, this is your challenge. Are you going to step up to the table? And I think she did in every way. I mean, to rely on her defense, not only, but also just kind of shut down UCF, I mean, they're a team that doesn't strike out often. They're a team that, doesn't walk very often. And for her to go in and kind of have that line of a full 7, she had 4 strikeouts, 1 walk. I think that's great for, this team and for her as she continues to build that confidence as she goes into Bedlam and postseason. I know Bedlam last year was kind of her breakout moment, so I'm excited that she's kind of getting that before that so that she can really dive into these big moments that I can feel coming up.
It's a little bit crazy. Kierston Deal is Oklahoma's first pitcher to earn consecutive league pitcher of the week honors since G. Juarez had it 4 straight weeks in mid-April to early May of 2019. I would have thought yourself or Jordy or somebody would have done that, but probably that's just a credit to the fact that your staff was what it was, that it's tough for you not to take it week to week from one another when you were playing with Oklahoma. But that's just, I don't know, a little bit crazy that Kierston Deal is the first to do that.
I didn't know that stat.
First to do it for Oklahoma in 5 years to go back to back, and the last probably to do it for Oklahoma because, well, after the SEC now. What about the rest of the pitching for Oklahoma? This is a big week for Kelly Maxwell. She'll, I'm sure, downplay that, but it's a big emotional week, I would think. Where is she at going into this thing? Not the Bedlam, but just what you saw from her in the circle versus UCF.
I mean, she is just really spinning the ball so well. What I'm excited about, she's kind of kept her walk count down. And so when you have that and she's consistently kind of getting that strikeout when she needs to, she's always kind of got that fight in her inning to inning. I know sometimes she'll get herself in a little bit of a trouble. This weekend, OU's defense had a little bit of uncharacteristic errors and everything. So I feel like she was really able to hold it down in those moments. And I think that's also just a tip of the cap to her experience and her maturity and her age when it comes to the circle and playing in this kind of beast of college softball. So I'm excited to see just like her lower her walk count and just continue to grind within an offense and go the distance. She's been asked to kind of carry a little bit more of the pitching load, and she's doing well with that. And so going into this, I love that, and I'm excited to see kind of how Coach Gasso and Coach Rocha kind of rotate her into just pitching rotations, as obviously this Oklahoma State lineup is going to know kind of her ins and outs. So trying to see how they kind of balance that and throw to this lineup. And I think that's also just a testament to how well and different Coach Rocha is when it comes to approaching lineups. And so I think it's all just brewing up to be like a perfect concoction. Of course, it's going to be emotional, and we're talking about Kelly Maxwell, one of the most unemotional pitchers out there in college softball. But it's going to make for a great weekend, and I just keep getting like amped up, getting ready for the weekend, thinking about it. So,
yeah, it's going to be an awesome environment at Love's Field. It's going to be fantastic. Can't wait. For Nicole May, before we shift into a full breakdown of Bedlam, obviously not what she wanted to close the series versus UCF. I keep coming back to, okay, she's kind of ridden this roller coaster at times before throughout her career, and then has delivered in huge moments for Oklahoma. So I think that's there for anybody that wants to try and hit this panic button on Nicole May. But where do you think she's at right now? She has to be frustrated to some degree. What do you see out of Nicole May? Where do you think she's at? And then I've got one other Nicole May question after you respond, but where is she at? What have you seen from her?
I think honestly, she keeps such an even keel that when you really break down her 2 innings that she threw against UCF on Sunday, she probably just wants 2 pitches back. And when you really like dive into it and it's 2 pitches that make a difference, I think that's the frustrating aspect within the 2 home runs. But I think a lot of people like to hit the panic button because I always just go back to her numbers, and what she did last year was so unreal. I've broken down the numbers before, but this is what she's having right now was similar to her freshman and sophomore year. Like you said, like she's had those rough roller coaster patches, but she always continues to step up in a really meaningful way when you really break it down. And I think that's kind of what the buildup is. And I kind of expect that out of her is she's going to have that clutch moment and she's going to shut up anyone that's kind of doubting her or hitting the panic button. So I'm just kind of waiting for her moment for that. But in reality, I think she just kind of wants a couple pitches back. And I think that's a little bit of the difference maker when you kind of break down her numbers and really look at the film and see what she's doing. And just going back to her bread and butter, which is kind of more of that change-up rise ball. I don't see that a whole ton out of her this season. So I'm kind of hoping she kind of heads back into that direction because that's where you saw a lot of her success.
Well, it'll be interesting to watch sort of how the next week and into the Big 12 tournament. And then, of course, the postseason takes shape in terms of how Coach Patty Gasso and Coach Jen Rocha, how they want to employ their arms. You could see a scenario where Kierston Deal is maybe the number 2 starter for Oklahoma right now. And maybe Nicole May is the number 3 starter and will be an important ingredient for Oklahoma if indeed that winds up being the case down the stretch. But do you need 3 starters for a postseason? Could Nicole May, when I think of, top relief arm or the closer, a lot of times in baseball or softball, for softball, you're thinking, okay, somebody that can come in and top out over 70 maybe, right? Or it's a hard throwing pitcher in relief. Can Nicole May be a difference maker for Oklahoma in what is maybe viewed as a less traditional relief arm if you're talking strictly, okay, come out of the bullpen and just a flamethrower, right? Can she help Oklahoma in that regard if it's not from a starting standpoint?
I think when you really break it down, Nicole May is going to be the closer in a lot of situations because just breaking down the pitching staff as a whole, Kelly has been a great starter, but in her closing kind of appearances, she's kind of given up the long ball and a little bit more runs than what she does when she's, coming and starting a game and going the distance. I think also Kierston Deal, she does better in just a starting role. Nicole May has, been in part of any kind of and every kind of situation when you really break it all down. And to balance that lefty-lefty combo you already have going, Nicole May brings a hard-throwing righty sense and experience and just the ability to just kind of have a good feel of the situation. I think she is going to be your kind of closer when it comes just down to it. Obviously, you have Carly Keeney. She doesn't have much of an off speed, and I think that's going to be a little bit of the danger if she's going for a longer term of an appearance. And so you might see Carly Keeney in there for a couple, I think shorter innings, but I think Nicole May is going to be your glue when you really break it down to those really big moments. And I'm sure Sooner fans don't want to hear me say that because they're a little bit on the doubtful side, but when you really break it down, Nicole May has the experience, and I think she's throwing harder this season, truthfully, from my experience when I've gone and watched her, and knowing what she was doing last year. And so I also think that has a little bit to do with why she's getting hit a little bit more, because throwing harder takes away a little bit of that spin. And so I think it all just kind of adds into each other, but I really do think Nicole May is going to step up in a really big way.
Well, that's interesting. Maybe you dial it back a notch in the postseason and try and go after that spin side a little bit more. Okay, we've kept everyone long enough without actually, in fact, breaking down Bedlam, which has arrived. We'll do it next on Locked On Sooners. There's no better place to purchase your tickets for the Western Conference semifinals, the Oklahoma City Thunder versus, well, TBD, either the Dallas Mavericks or the Los Angeles Clippers. But the Gametime app, that's the place you're going to want to go purchase tickets. Download the Gametime app today. Use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Why is that? Well, the Gametime app is awesome for sports fans. It lets you see your seat view before you buy with the panoramic view from your seat, again, in the app before you purchase. Plus, with Gametime ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The main event of the regular season of the Big 12 season is here. It's Oklahoma. It's Oklahoma State. It is Bedlam. And the stakes, of course, are large. What are your initial thoughts about Oklahoma State, this Bedlam series?
I mean, my initial thoughts are just the excitement of kind of that build up all year. Obviously, OU has that 1-game lead within the conference. So I know Oklahoma State wants to take that from them in any way, shape, or form. But I think, too, the emotional side of, Kelly playing her former team and all the emotions and all the comments in social media and everything that have gone towards that. I know it's such a rooted, rivalry. It's the last rivalry in Big 12. I know Coach Gasso talked about, it's still being a Bedlam being played every year in a different sense. But I think the conference added to it is going to be big. Obviously, we're going SEC next year, and Oklahoma State is not. As well as just kind of the ability to kind of capitalize on that veteran offense that Oklahoma has. I know Oklahoma State graduated quite a few veterans in their lineup last year, as well as, Kelly transferring out. But they do have, Lexi Kilfoyle still there. They have that's, probably one of the main athletes I can think of besides, Talon Edwards and a lot of other players, but they're on the younger side. So I think, that and playing in Loves for the first time in this kind of competition, it's going to just be an absolute fireball when it comes down to it. And I'm just so stoked. I get just amped up. I'm ready. I keep, making sure that, the weather's good. And so hopefully everything kind of lines up to just have an explosive kind of atmosphere at Loves Field this weekend.
You didn't have this situation to where it's, oh my goodness, Oklahoma, Michigan, 3-game series at Loves Field after you make the move to OU. But you heard some of the chirping from folks that are way too comfortable to tweet and talk on the social medias of the world. For Kelly Maxwell, is this just the delete Twitter week? I mean, how do you handle this week?
I mean, shoot, if I was her, I'd probably delete socials in some way, shape, or form. But I feel like, her and I probably engage in socials a lot differently. But I think, too, it's just kind of like that chip on your shoulder aspect. And so I love when you have that kind of storyline. I feel like I kind of came up in that storyline in a lot of ways. And so I'm excited to see how she capitalizes it. If, the emotions are running high with her, even if she's not showing it. So I think it just goes along the lines of, yes, it's such an intense rivalry, and just kind of taking back that kind of pride from, the football season and just a lot of other added up stuff. I know last year it was one of the hottest weekends ever, and it was the last time being, at Stillwater, and their fans showed up. And so I'm really hoping, and I know that Sooner Nation will show up for this team to help them and back them in any way.
Well, we know what Oklahoma brings to the table offensively, defensively, in the circle. Lexi Kilfoyle is spectacular when things are going right. What type of challenge, what do you like about her stuff that she presents to Oklahoma's hitters?
Yeah, I mean, she kind of brings that drop ball. She's majority drop ball pitching wise. And so I'm excited to see kind of how they handle that aspect. I think, knowing how they hit and how they just transform themselves to kind of really knock down that, strength within an opposing team. I'm excited to see just how they, attack her. Something that I'll forever remember is Alyssa Brito's home run against her last year that I don't think has landed still. Is probably one of the furthest home runs I've ever seen. And so I just think that they should carry that kind of just confidence in them. I know it's been rocky in the last couple of years, but I think a lot of had to do with it is on our team now. And so I'm excited to see just how that they kind of, I hope they wear the emotion kind of on their sleeves and use that rivalry and just amp themselves up and let the emotions explode, let it be exciting, let it be fun, and, really kind of wear them down, wear the Cowgirls down, and, show them that Loves is their house and no one's coming in there and knocking them down.
What, if you can you compare, contrast OU Texas and Bedlam? Is there chirping? What are the rivalries like? Does that happen between teams out there on the softball side? What is the rivalry, the Bedlam rivalry like? And does it compare or contrast similarly or differently to OU Texas?
I think it compares for sure. I also played in the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry, and that was always intense as well. And so I think there's a lot of similarities. I know we had the Michigan State. I think Oklahoma State is a little bit more just competitively, like performance-wise within softball. But obviously, you know, Twitter fingers are always really big on all of those kind of rivalries. So I just hope that, you know, we take off of this kind of rivalry and really build on it. But it's been cool to kind of be a part of, you know, some very prolific rivalries within college athletics.
So the players themselves, though, a lot of chirping or not very much chirping, depends on the player. How much talking is out there? Now you're in the circle, so maybe you don't hear all of that, but how much talking is there between teams?
I think it'd have to be kind of a little bit more targeted. A moment that sticks out in my mind is, you know, Jada Coleman against Oklahoma State a couple years ago before I was here, and like we saw that from Michigan's end, like throughout the softball world too. So like it totally hyped me up. But I feel like when you're on OU, you don't chirp until you get chirped at kind of deal. And so I think that is a kind of, you know, rule within rules, the unwritten kind. And so I think we kind of let other people fire us up before we heat any kind of fire. So
yeah, just don't rattle the cage out there. You know, cowgirls or anybody. That's the advice. In closing, Alex, the postseason is right around the corner after this. Big 12 championship, of course, is on the line in this series, but just big picture, generically speaking, what do you want to see from Oklahoma in this series that will make you feel the same, better, or just positive about Oklahoma heading into, obviously, the postseason?
Oklahoma defense. Coach Gasso has always preached that defense wins championships. I know Oklahoma is known for their offense, but when you really break it down, I feel like that's been preached to me my entire life. And so with this past weekend against UCF, them having a little bit more of those errors, I really hope that they're kind of cleaning it up this next weekend and forward, and really kind of providing that security for their pitchers, so their pitchers aren't going to be in like those hard spots that are hard to get out of, but also just adding that confidence to an offensive side. It's really easy to bring, you know, mistakes, you know, to your position or even to the lineup. And so if you keep the field clean, I think that just adds success to your side going forward. You planning on being at Loves Field all weekend? Heck yeah, I am. I figured you would be, but just double checking. Yeah, it should be fun. I mean, it's going to be an awesome environment. Alex, hey, thank you for your time. As always, great stuff. Thank you. That's Alex Storako, and this, of course, has been Locked On Sooners. Until next time, when hopefully we're talking about a Sooner sweep over the Cowgirls in Bedlam. Until then, so long, everybody.